Japan Hour, tonight on CNA. Japan Hour is brought to you by Sumitomo Corporation and SMBC. Every day, the financial world goes through dramatic rise and falls. We'll track the biggest market movers and show you where the opportunities lie. Get the experts' take on the performance of key indices. Plus all the analysis to help you understand forces driving global economies. The daily business news you need. Only on CNA. This segment is brought to you by Xeon Corporation.
Tonight, could rising inflation derail the post-pandemic economic recovery?
Those parts of the market that are more overvalued could easily get hit.
Relooking China's growth model as its population ages.
Chinese babies are not growing into industrial workers in the future.
Plus, how to be a part of the blockchain boom. Tonight on CNA.
Now, Alaska is seeing temperatures increase at least twice as fast as in the rest of the United States. Rising sea levels are causing coastal erosion, pushing some communities inland. Volatile summer storms are sparking massive wildfires. All of that is putting a much bigger strain on the communities who rely on the land to survive. Nick Harper reports from Anchorage.
In rural Alaska, dog sledding is still a part of everyday life. Mayum Osma, the only Vietnamese musher in the state, moved to the US about a decade ago, and sledding has taken some getting used to.
At first I'm very scared and very nervous. I crashed a lot, but after that I'm very confident. I feel so free. You run a dog, you don't care about anything else, just a dog and you.
Her husband Dean became an overnight celebrity when he won the annual Iditarod in 1984, a grueling 1,500-kilometre solo sledding journey in minus 50 Celsius temperatures. He now runs sledding tours and leases his dogs to other teams. But the race route has been changed several times in recent years, as warmer weather has meant not enough snow on the ground, putting the sport and Dean's livelihood in jeopardy.
Well, you don't want to keep having races that have an asterisk behind them. You would like to have just be a real Iditarod on the original route. We don't have ourselves don't have much control over that, so we're just all hoping that it remains the same and stays a good quality race.
Rural, often native communities are the hardest hit in the state. The wild fish they rely on for food is dying off in warmer waters.
It's all connected. So when you have, say, the entire Yukon River watershed changing, where water temperatures, for example, are rising, that impacts, for example, the salmon throughout the entire watershed, over 1,000 plus miles from the Yukon River Delta all the way up over into Canada.
Just an hour outside of the state's largest city, Anchorage, is one of the most visible signs of creeping change.
100 years ago, the Portage Glacier was right here on the very spot where I'm standing. In the 1980s, when they built this visitors centre, it had receded, but you could still see it. Today, you can't see it. It's receded even further and is now about 4 kilometres away around the bend in that valley.
Alaska has more glaciers than any other US state, but some studies suggest they're melting 100 times quicker than previously thought. Rising temperatures are also pushing wildlife further north in search of colder areas. Nicole Schmidt from the Alaska Wildlife Alliance says preserving wildlife is hard in a state where the biggest revenue earner remains oil and gas.
I think the time for us to keep our head in the sand and pretend that things are going along as normal has well passed, and so that's something we're really working on. It depends on what level you're looking at, but the state as a whole, I mean, our governor has not taken a really strong stance on climate change, and we have yet to see how the Biden administration incorporates their plans for climate change in Alaska.
The state is trying to balance the short-term needs of Alaskans with the long-term needs of Alaska, with climate change advocates warning now is no longer the time to just go with the flow. Nick Harper, CNA, Alaska.
Manchester City and Chelsea, two of England's richest football clubs, crossed swords today in the UEFA Champions League final. But the presence of their fans on neutral soil, the Portuguese coastal city of Porto, hasn't been warmly welcomed. And that is because locals aren't happy with the last-minute decision from authorities to relax COVID-19 safety rules. Hundreds of English fans have been packing the city's riverside bars, most of them not wearing masks. British tourists are now allowed in and out of Portugal if they present a negative PCR test. Locals are also upset that foreign fans can go into the stadium, but they have been banned from attending matches for months. Only 16,500 fans are allowed into the stadium, but many others have been arriving in Porto to support their teams from the sidelines. The most magical place in the Big Apple is set to open next week. The world's only official Harry Potter flagship store is gearing up to welcome fans in New York. Dumbledore's Griffin forks at the Phoenix and more than 50 wands are on display in the 21,000 square foot shop. It also has props from the films and the largest collection of Harry Potter merchandise. Author J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter's novels are about a boy wizard, and they've sold more than 500 million copies worldwide. It's also been made into blockbuster movies. Executives behind the flagship store say this is the right time to bring in some magic.
Yeah, it's been a really tough year in a lot of people's lives. We have a giant Forks the Phoenix hanging over our entrance at Fifth Avenue, and I sometimes see that as a bit of a sign for the store, for a phoenix from the flames. So it's really exciting to be opening this store now. We think it's the right time to do so.
Well, that is Asia Now for this hour. Your headlines anytime at cna.asia, Facebook, YouTube and Twitter. Bye-bye.
Look forward to brighter skies. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Myanmar opening its doors to the world, but still much work is needed. The journey hasn't been easy, with pressure from within and without. Twists and turns line the way, but even when it's down, this country never stops trying. This is a country that can bank on its people. People who have the power to chart Myanmar's path. And people who have stories to tell the world.